It is cold, it is snowy, and today we are talking cozy books to read this winter. So grab your tea and let's hang out and talk about some cool books that I'm reading this winter. Thanks for joining me. Hello and welcome back. I'm Christina Amanita and I love all things thrifty and crafty and naturey, and today we're talking about my cozy winter reads. So just as a disclaimer, I don't really read fiction, so these are all going to be nonfiction books, but if you're a fiction lover, don't go just yet. All 4 of these books are going to be whimsical, they're going to be cozy, and maybe a little bit mind-bending. So there's a lot of good stuff to read in the nonfiction category. Don't write it off and stick with me. A quick note about sourcing before we get into our books. Just as a reminder, always be mindful of where you're getting your books. You know, it takes a lot of things to produce a book. So start by borrowing from friends, from the library, asking family and buy nothing groups. And then if you need to, buy used or buy local. Those are all the best options. So do your best. We're all doing a little bit, taking a little extra step to be a little bit more mindful about our consumption, especially when we're reading nature books. We want to consume them with nature in mind. So let's get into our very first book, Gathering Moss by Robin Wall Kimmerer. So if you haven't heard of Robin Wall Kimmerer, please check her out. If not this book, any of her other books. But let's get into Gathering Moss. So this is the easiest read on the list. You can see it's pretty short. It's got some nice, easily digestible chapters. But this book I think is great for winter, for this time of the year, especially up here in the north, because a lot of things are dead or dormant, and there's not much green at the moment. So green things start popping up, it's going to be the moss first. When things get really wet and nothing's really alive yet, the moss is going to be taking over. They're going to take the scene and you're going to see them everywhere. So now is a great time to get started learning about them a little bit and getting excited to see them in the spring, the very early spring. Yes. So this book is a great combination of storytelling and science. It's got some really cool illustrations, and it kind of is about this fantastical microscopic world. So if that sounds interesting to you, stick around. Just a quick note about Robin Wall Kimmerer, because we love her. If you haven't heard of her, she's written Braiding Sweetgrass, which is a pretty popular book now, and her new book, The Service Berry, which I have not read yet, but I'm sure is at least as good as the other 2 books. So Robin Wall Kimmerer is a Potawatomi woman. Potawatomi. She's a Potawatomi woman. And she is a botanist and a professor, and so she's got a really unique perspective. She does a really beautiful job in all of her writing and all of her speaking and all of her activism, in just marrying the indigenous ideas and experiences that she's had in her life, and also her botanical background, her more sciencey, ecological background. So she does a really good job of putting those things together and making the sciencey stuff really easy to digest and read and understand and to relate to. So just one more note on her. She's the director of the Center for Native Peoples and the Environment at the University of New York College of Environmental Science and Forestry. So that's a mouthful, but she does it all. She's an amazing woman. So if you're looking for a little bit of indigenous voices, indigenous perspective at this time, this is a great place to start. And just, this is a cozy, easy read. I read it last year and I'm ready to get back into it, read it all again, and get excited about moss again. So grab your magnifying glass and let's get ready to check out some moss. So Gathering Moss by Robin Wall Kimmerer, a natural and cultural history of mosses. So while we're talking about getting out our magnifying glass, hold that thought. Another book that is gonna really get us excited about the microscopic world around us, especially in the spring, which is coming soon, is Entangled Life: How Fungi Make Our Worlds, Change Our Minds, and Shape Our Futures by Merlin Sheldrake. Just an amazing book. I've read this book 3.5 times maybe, and I'm starting it again. So I highly recommend this book. This is a little bit more sciencey than Gathering Moss. There's a lot more like just science content, I guess, more big words, but not out of hand. So it's really easy to understand, even when he is explaining kind of more hard concepts within the mycological world. It's always really easy to understand. So that's why I really love this book, and I highly recommend it to anybody who wants to learn a little bit more about fungi, about microbes, about what's really happening on a microscopic level around us. This is the one. I found this book incredibly enlightening. It challenged my perception of what an organism is, what an individual is, of what consciousness and intelligence are. So like, these are just really cool things to kind of expand our mind and question like, what do these things actually mean? So this is a great way to learn about fungi, about how they have shaped our world and will continue to shape our world, and hopefully how we can use them to remediate some of the effects that humanity has had on the earth. We'll leave it at that. So if you're interested in mushrooms or fungi in any way, this is your book. This is your guide. I would love to make a whole video about mushrooms and fungi. So if that sounds like something that's interesting to you, let me know down in the comments. And make sure you hit the little bell to be notified when I make a new video. So, Entangled Life by Merlin Sheldrake. All right, this next book is definitely the most sciencey. This one might be the hardest to read, but it has really clear chapters, so it can be broken up in tiny little chunks, which is kind of how I have been reading it. So this is An Immense World by Ed Young. How animal senses reveal the hidden realms around us, and that really is just what I learned. So it's kind of a thick book, and like I said, I like to read it just in chapters, one chapter at a time. Each chapter is focused on a different sense, and it is just so cool. This book is just full of history of the science of animals and understanding animal senses. It's filled with maybe some potential new discoveries, hopefully, and it's just so good. But this one, I will say, is the hardest to read, the hardest to digest, because there's so much information, so many big words, so many concepts that are just like so hard to wrap your head around, because how can we know what an animal senses and feels? Because we've never been one. So for that very reason, but it also has like a ton of footnotes. Like every page pretty much has like notes at the bottom. So the first time that I read this, I was determined to read every single note as I went, and it was a lot. And so the second time I read it, I gave myself the permission to not read the notes unless I felt like it might actually, unless I felt like I was reading a sentence and I really wanted to know more about that thing. So, which is often the case, but anyway, this book can be kind of as challenging or as not challenging as you want to make it. This I found to be pretty trippy, honestly. It challenged, again, my perception of really everything, really everything. Like what I sense, what animals sense, what insects sense, what I'm coming back to like fungi. So it really opens up your mind to like these sensory worlds of all of these other wonderful creatures that have evolved alongside of us in so many different ways, and sometimes in the same ways, which is really interesting to see. So I find that this book breaks down the boundaries that kind of we've put up for ourselves and sets the record straight a lot about animal senses. I like that he does talk a lot about where people had gotten it wrong in the past, where sciences have been wrong, where the general public didn't believe scientists when they said that we were wrong. So just kind of a cool perspective on what we actually know in science and how much we really do not know. And obviously specifically in relation to animal senses. So yeah, this one, if you're looking for a book to fill you with a sense of imagination, a sense of wonder, a sense of wondering what your cat or your dog is feeling or sensing at all times, this is the one for you. It's all about thinking outside the box And if you're somebody who likes books where you have to kind of like reread the pages, this is the one for you. So, An Immense World by Ed Yong. Okay, we're on to my last cozy winter read, and this one is just a good book. It's a little bit less sciencey. It's actually not really sciencey at all, but it is about nature in a lot of ways. So, Restoring the Kinship Worldview, Indigenous Voices Introduce 28 Precepts for Rebalancing Life on Planet Earth. And it's kind of a conversation between, I'm gonna mess this up, Four Arrows, Wahimke Topa, and Darsha Narvaez. I'm so sorry. I am. So each chapter is a discussion. Well, each chapter starts with an excerpt from a speech from an Indigenous leader, and then the two authors go on to discuss and have kind of a back and forth about what that speech means, how it can inform us, and what the Indigenous precept is that's there in the writing or the speech or the excerpt. So just really cool. Again, this is another one that I find is a good one to just read a chapter at a time, because it's a lot. But to read a chapter at a time, and just to recognize that Indigenous wisdom is valid and important in our world today, and especially going forward. The more kind of divided we get, and the more separated we are from nature and from the earth, this is what we need to come back to. So they talk about topics like community, reciprocity, the dignity of life, and the interconnectedness of humans and all other creation, how we should be relating to each other, how to respect each other. So just like some teachings on like just basic human decency in a lot of ways, but also connecting it back to just this kind of overarching idea of interconnectedness, of reciprocity, of being related with everything around us in nature and in the earth, and trying to remind ourselves that we're not as disconnected as we might think or maybe want to be. So if you're looking for a book to kind of challenge some ideas, to dive into, to get some perspectives from Indigenous people on, you know, what we're doing maybe right or wrong or different, and how we can move forward, this is the one for you. It's really about how we connect with everything, everyone, how we can do better, and how we can use Indigenous principles to do all that. And like, if that doesn't sound like a good thing that you want to do, then you might be in the wrong place here. So check out this amazing book, Restoring the Kinship Worldview, because it's a good one, and each chapter has brought me, you know, more perspective and more ideas on how I can show up for myself, for my community, for my family, for Mother Earth. Yeah. All right, so I know that was a lot, but I'm excited about these books. In researching for this video, I found that a lot of people do like 20 books in a video, and I don't think that is the way to properly honor books such as these. So these 4 books, I hope that one of them sounded good to you. I hope that one of them excited you and piqued your interest, and maybe at the very least you'll look into maybe these authors and learn a little bit more about them. I know some of them have been featured on podcasts and shows and things like that. So look into these amazing authors, look into these amazing books and these amazing topics, and decide what do you want to learn more about, because learning every day is really what's exciting me at the moment and keeping me going, driving me forward with a little bit of hope, hopefully. So thank you so much for hanging out with me. Those were my cozy books for this winter. I hope you enjoyed them, and I hope you'll come back. So if you enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed my talking about some books, then like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much again, and happy reading this winter. Bye.